In this video, I will show you an automation that will automatically create email newsletters with Make.com. And the best part is you can make money from these newsletters through embedded affiliate links. All you'll have to do is pick the information sources that you want included in your email, and the automation will take care of the rest. The end result will be a fully formatted, highly engaging email newsletter that can be sent to your audience on a weekly or a monthly basis. I use Mailchimp here as the email platform, but this system should work for any of the other email platforms out there in the market. By the way, if you want access to the Make.com blueprints so you can quickly import them at the click of a button, then check out the link in the description to our community, where you can get access to this template and many others. Before we build the automation, here's a quick bird's eye view of the system setup and how the automation works. So the first thing you'll need is an email template. This template will contain editable areas that will be populated by the automation. In this video, I'm building out a weekly newsletter for a Formula One fan site. So you can see the email template here, which contains an introduction section. It has 5 news items. It has a next race section, and it also has a latest merchandise section. All of these areas will be dynamically populated by the automation. So the text that you see here is effectively placeholder text that will be overwritten. So here's an example of the fully populated email. As you can see, it has a new introduction. This is the top story. The next race section is populated with a link to a ticket package, more news items, and then the latest merchandise. The great part about this type of template is that it not only contains news, which would be of interest to your audience, but it also contains affiliate links. That way you can generate money from people clicking on latest merchandise or some of the various ticket packages linked. This type of structure makes a lot of sense for a Formula One fans newsletter, but by designing your own email template, you can build a structure to cater to any industry or any audience, and the automation will still work. So as you saw, the automation generates content and drops it into the email template. So the next step then is to figure out where that information is coming from to generate that content. This may be as simple as an RSS feed from the news section of your website, or you may want to pull content from YouTube or TikTok or Instagram. To pull the information that the automation needs, I'm going to show you a really easy system to set up feeds. And finally, with the email template set up, with your information sources selected, you then need to create or import the automation into Make.com. And that's it. Your automation is then ready to run. So here's a quick look at the automation flow. In the first few nodes, the system fetches and analyzes news articles. It then picks the best news items to include in your email newsletter, and then it writes a unique section for that. From there, it comes up and it writes an introduction and a subject for the email newsletter, and it also generates the next race section and the merchandise section. And finally, we go to Mailchimp, and the system automatically creates the campaign and populates out the template with everything generated. So let's now go through the process of building this up step by step, and I can talk through each step in detail. So as latest news is a key part of this template, the first thing we need to do is to fetch that news. There are 2 approaches to fetching information from websites to bring it into Make.com. Number 1, you can scrape the data, or number 2, you can use RSS feeds. While scraping can get quite complicated quite quickly, RSS feeds are a very flexible, very easy to use solution. So I'll be using that approach for this system. For Formula One, there are a number of publications that publish news, such as the race, the main Formula One website, motorsport.com. So what I'm going to do just to demonstrate this functionality is I'm going to aggregate all of this news into a single RSS feed that we can bring into our system. For that, we're going to use a system called RSS App. This system is super easy to use. So once you sign up, you can click on My Feeds, and then you can click New Feed on the top right and just drop in the URL. So here we have therace.com, and this is their Formula One news section. And you can just drop that into the RSS generator, click Generate, and there you have it, the latest Formula One articles from that website. It works the same for, say, the Formula One news section. There's the news items, and also for motorsport.com. So this is a very easy approach to pull down the latest news articles, and will work for most websites. If it doesn't work, there's also an RSS builder solution, which I'll talk about in a few minutes. So now with these feeds set up, what you need to do is bundle them into a single feed that we can then bring into Make.com. So here I've created an F1 category or an F1 bundle, and I've included those 3 feeds. And as you can see, this now includes all articles from all of those sources. So this is exactly what we need. So if you just copy out this XML link and then come into Make.com and click plus, what we're going to do is we're going to use the built-in HTTP module just to fetch that XML data. So we'll get a file, and all we'll do is just paste it in there. There is an RSS module in Make.com. We're not using that for this system. And let's run this. And then if you click the bubble, and you can see output, data, and now you can see that all of the latest news items from all of these publications is showing. So now we have something to work with. So step 2 then is we want to analyze these news articles to determine what are the best ones to include in our email newsletter. So in our template, we have 5 news article sections. So we want to populate that with the most significant news items. So if I click add another module and then hit OpenAI, create a completion. Now I'm not going to go through the process of setting up a connection. Essentially, you just click add and follow the steps, and then you need to get an API key. More information is in this online help. So from here, you can select a method, which we're going to leave at a chat completion. I'm going to choose a model. So I usually pick GPT-4, which is the latest and best that they have. And then from here, then we need to add messages. So the first message is going to be the system role. So we're going to tell the system what we're expecting of it. And what I'll do here is I'll just copy in this prompt and then let's talk through it. Okay, so here it is. So you are an enthusiastic Formula One fan. You lead a large community of like-minded F1 supporters that you keep informed on the latest goings-on in the sport through a weekly email digest. You will be provided the latest 10 stories from the main sporting publications. Your task is to review each news story and rate the news item in terms of its significance and potential interest to the readers. And then I'm asking it to score it. Most significant should be 10, with least significant 0. So essentially what we're doing here is we're asking ChatGPT to score the news items, and from that then we can determine which ones we're going to include. Then a nice trick here as well is if a news story is duplicated between publications, then flag the additional stories as a duplicate. That way we can then filter them out. Take your time and work through the task methodically. Generate an array of JSON objects. It sounds complicated, but basically what that means is we're going to get a very structured response that then the automation can work with. So then here I provide sample outputs. So the first story, then there's a title, a link, a significance rating, and whether it's a duplicate or not. So this is what I'm expecting ChatGPT to respond with. And then we can work with that data further on in the automation. So that's the system message. What we need to do now is we need to provide it the latest 10 stories. And that's essentially what we're getting from this HTTP module, or that's what we're getting from the RSS feed that we just created. So from here then, add a message. We're going to set this as a user message. And all we need to do then is just pass in the XML or the RSS feed. So we've selected data and that's it. Max tokens we're going to set to 0. And then it's important here, just click show advanced settings. Under response format, we want to get a JSON object. So just choose JSON object. And again, that'll give us a highly structured response that the automation can work with. Brilliant. So that is the OpenAI create completion. So what we're doing here then is this is analyzing news stories. So let's rename this to analyze news stories. And let's run this prompt now just to see how it works. Okay, so it's fetched the RSS feed, as you can see here. And these are the latest 10 news items. And now it's analyzing the news stories. As you can see, it's processing. Great, so that's finished. And then if you click the little bubble here, you can see the output. So bundle 1 result. Great, and we now see this is a JSON array, but this is the structured data then that we can work with. And each of the stories in the RSS feed shows up here, and we can see the significance rating. So for the first title, the hypercar makes a world debut. It's rated at 8 out of 10. This one 6 out of 10. This one 8 out of 10. Now, interestingly, it's flagged this one as a duplicate. So that way then we're not going to have duplicate news items in the email newsletter, which is important. So we can filter out any duplicates. So we now have an analysis carried out by ChatGPT of the news stories. So next we need to reorder this list and pick the top 5. So for that, we'll click add another module and add another OpenAI create a completion. And we're going to go back to GPT-4 and we're going to set a system message. And again, I'll paste it in here and we can talk through it. Okay, so this is the message. So this is the reordering prompt. So reorder this JSON array with the highest significant objects at the top and the lowest at the bottom. This should be based on the significance rating that we can see in the result. Also remove all cases where an object is flagged as a duplicate, so that'll strip that out, and then only output the top 5 stories and only output JSON. So again, we're still looking for that structured output. Great, so then add a message. We're going to set the user message, and now we're just going to pass in the result from this analyze news story prompt, and it's going to process it further. Max tokens, again, will set to 0 and allow the model choose how long the response needs to be. And again, response format JSON to get a highly structured response. And let's rename this one. This is reordered news items. So as you can see now, we've gotten the last 10 items from the XML feed. We've analyzed them and now we've reordered them. So now we have the top 5 items to be included in our email newsletter. As you can see, this is quite a flexible analysis and should work for a lot of use cases. Next step is we need to process each news item and generate content to drop into the email template. So because we've asked GPT-4o to provide a JSON object as a result, we need to parse that first. So if we click add another module, you can search for JSON, parse JSON. And all we need to do here is under JSON string, we're looking for the result from this reordered news items. Let's run this and I'll just show you the difference between what we get back from GPT-4 versus when it's parsed. Okay, so the processing is complete. Let's have a look. So this bubble over reorder news items. Now, if you go into the output, first things first, there's only one bundle. That's important, and I'll tell you why in a minute. And then if you go into the result, you can see it says long string. This is just text, but it effectively represents a JSON object. So what this parse JSON module does is it takes this and it parses it into multiple bundles that Make.com can use. So then if you click on this bubble here, you can see now the output contains a number of stories. You still have one bundle, but it's a number of stories, 5 news stories. So the next step now is to use what's called an iterator, which is to break these stories into multiple bundles, and then within Make.com, each bundle can have its own run. This will make sense in a minute, so just bear with me. So we'll click add another module, and then we're going to choose iterator. And you can see even in the image here, there's a single arrow, and then it results in multiple lines or multiple runs. We're going to choose that. And then from here, you select your array, and we're going to choose the stories array. That was what was generated from this parse JSON module. So you can't use the result directly from GPT-4o because it's just a long piece of text. You have to actually parse that. So we now have the iterator. So the next step now is we need to process each news item. So we need to pull the text of the news item, and then we want to generate our own content that we can drop into the email template. So to pull the text, I always use Scraptio, which is a scraping service. So we'll click on add another module and then search for Scraptio, and then you can select scrape website texts. So we'll leave that there for a second and let's just jump onto their website. So scraping made easy. There are lots of different scraping services on Make.com. This one is simple to use. It's very cheap. So if you go to pricing, you can see it's $3 a month for up to 500 requests. And yeah, just a great service. So you can sign up on the Scraptio website and then you'll be able to get an API key. And from there, then when you add the module, you can add the connection and the key. Pretty straightforward. I'll drop a link to Scraptio in the description below. Okay, so we want to pull the text from this news page to generate our own content. So in terms of website to scrape, you're then looking to use the link that's available within the iterator. So you can see here it's therace.com, and that is the news story. You can leave response format as joined. There's nothing else you need to set here, so just click OK. So I've run that now, and you can see the number 5 appears over the top of Scraptio. And as you can see, there's been 5 operations that have run. So within the iterator, we have had 5 bundles now, which you can see there. And for each of those bundles, we now have an execution cycle, which then results in 5 operations. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all with different URLs. And then as you can see, it's pulled the information from each of those pages. So the next stage now is we need to generate content that reflects the news item. So we'll drag this down here just to kind of separate this out a bit. And next we're going to jump into an OpenAI completion. Again, we'll choose GPT-4o, set max tokens as 0, and we'll add a system message here. And this system message says, you are an enthusiastic Formula One fan. You lead a large community of like-minded supporters. You're keeping them updated on a digest. You are writing a section of your weekly email digest which focuses on the provided news story. So we're going to provide that in a minute. In an engaging way, write a summary of the article and what's interesting about it. Jump straight into the topic, so no need for welcomes or wrap-ups. Mention the writer's name and the publication early in the summary. And keep it to 1 paragraph. Also write a unique headline for this section of the digest and only output JSON. So again, we're using JSON for a structured output because what we want here is a headline and a summary, and we want to be able to drop the headline into a different section of the email template. So that's going to be the system message. So then add a message. So we need to now pass in the content from the news item. So a user message, we're going to drop in data from the scrape, and then max token 0, and again we'll just set JSON as the response object. So from here then, add another module where we're just going to parse the JSON that we get from here. I'll just rename this. This is right content. Great, let's run this now and test it. So during testing, this is going to run 5 times every time you test it. So that's a bit of an overhead. It's just going to delay things. So what we're going to do is in the reorder news items section, I'll just change this to only output the top 2 stories. And we can change that back to 5 then when we're ready to go at the end of the system. Okay, so I've changed that to 2, and now let's run it. Great, so that's nearly finished now, and you can see here that we only have 2 stories, which is brilliant. And yeah, you can only see the number 2 above. So for the right content then, yeah, we're getting JSON. So let's see. Yeah, so for the first operation, you can see the headline is the hypercar steals the spotlight, and there's a nice summary. And then for the second operation, that's the headline and the summary. Brilliant. So we now have the text that we need to drop into the email template. The problem here is that this is just text. We need HTML to put into a HTML email template. So let's jump into Mailchimp and have a look at the email template and see what structure we need this outputted to. Okay, so this is Mailchimp. I've logged in. So if I come down here under content to email templates, you can see the template that I've created. So we'll just jump into this. So this is the top news story, and this is the second news story, for example. So we want to pull the HTML for this news item, and that way then we can get ChatGPT to generate the HTML that we can drop into the template. So let's scroll down here, and here's the relevant HTML. So it's image, H2, news, title, heading, and then you have some text and a link. So this is essentially the structure that we need ChatGPT to generate that we can then drop into the template. So we can copy this out and ask GPT-4 to create HTML with the headline and the summary that it's already written, but actually output it in this structure. So if we come back in here, click add another module, OpenAI, create a completion, GPT-4o, max token 0, and we'll set a system message now. So here's the system message. You are tasked with taking a news headline, image, text, and link, and outputting HTML based on the following structure. Replace the text in the HTML structure as is necessary. Each sentence in the text should be a separate paragraph, so that's just for readability. Only output HTML and do not output triple dash HTML. This came out in testing that it kept producing this content that we needed to strip out. Okay, so let's copy in the section that we need, paste this in here, and press OK. And then we need to add the message. So the user message. What we need to do now is provided the headline, the image, the text, and the URL. So I find it's always good to delimit the different sections if you're providing ChatGPT with kind of more complicated structured information. So we'll delimit it here with, let's say, 5 apostrophes. So news headline, and we're going to grab the news headline from this module. Then we're going to say, so summary, which is here. We're going to provide it the image, which is in the iterator. And finally, we're going to provide it the URL. Great. So we've now provided it everything that it needs to actually output this. So we're providing it the image, we're providing it the headline, we're providing it the text, we're providing it the link. And here we don't need it to output JSON. We're happy for this to be text. This is actually going to be HTML that we're going to drop in. Okay, let's run this and see how it turns out. Great, so that's just finished the first run, and it's now finishing for the second news item. So let's have a look at operation 1. And you can see what we passed in. So we passed in the news headline, the summary, the image and the URL, as well as obviously the system message. Great, we're getting back a full HTML structure that we can now drop straight into the HTML template for the email. That's a great output. And we'll have a look at the second operation, result, and again, it's a full HTML structure. So we're in good shape here. So now that we've generated the HTML for each of the news items, we now need an email introduction, we need an email subject, and we also want to populate out the next race section and the latest merchandise section. What we need to consider though is that we're currently in this iterator loop. Everything down on this row is running multiple times for each news story, whereas we only want to generate a single introduction. So to do that, the iterator is what splits it out into multiple runs. So we need to use an aggregator, which is what brings it back into a single run. So if you click on add another module, then type in aggregator, you can see array aggregator here. So let's move it back up onto this line. And then for source module, we want to select the iterator. And then in terms of aggregated fields, all we want to do is we want to aggregate the HTML that we just generated from this module. So we'll click result here. This will all make more sense in a couple of minutes. So we'll click OK. And let's rename this actually to generate news HTML. Brilliant. So let's just zoom out for 2 seconds. So the end-to-end run so far, we fetched the latest 10 to 20 news items. We've whittled it down to the 5 most significant items to include in the email newsletter. And then for each of those news items, we've written our own content for it. and we've generated HTML to be injected into the email template. So next up, we now need to generate an introduction for the newsletter and a subject line. So let's go to OpenAI, create a completion, and we'll choose again GPT-4o. We'll set a system message. I'll just paste it in here. So the system message is, again, you're an enthusiastic Formula One fan. You're putting the finishing touches to a weekly email. You'll be provided with the news stories that are included in the email, and your task is to write an engaging subject line and a snappy 75-word introduction to the newsletter. Only output JSON. So we're looking for an email subject and an opening paragraph, and we need to be able to use both of those later on in the automation. So again, JSON is our preferred kind of structure. So we now need to provide it the top 5 news stories. So probably the best way to do this is just to provide it the output from this reorder news items feed. So we'll come in here, add a message, user, and then you can see the result of that reorder news item. And that's effectively going to give us everything that we need to generate a snappy intro and an email subject. And come down here, max token 0, and again, output JSON. Brilliant. And again, we'll parse the JSON. And let's just rename this now to generate intro and subject. Brilliant. So we have our email intro and email subject. Let's run this now and let's see how it reads. Okay, so it's generating the intro and subject now, and it has parsed it. So let's have a look. The Red Bull steals the spotlight and Verstappen's upgrade, please. So yeah, that's the summary of both news stories. And great, it has provided a HTML that again encompasses the news. Excellent. So we have our intro and subject. So let's now look back at the template and see what other areas we need to populate. So we have our intro done. We have our news items finished. So what we're missing is the merchandise section, and we are missing this next race section. So let's do the next race section. So the question is, when is the next Formula One race, and how can we accurately and reliably find that? So the Formula One website is probably the best place to go. So let's go there. And as you can see under schedule, you can see the next race is Hungary 2024. So probably the easiest way to do this is either clicking on schedule or even the homepage itself. If we just pass the entire homepage to ChatGPT and ask it when is the next race, it most likely will pick up that it is Hungary 2024. So we could pass it the homepage, or maybe we could pass it the schedule page. So let's try the homepage. So we'll copy that out. Now we'll come back in here and let's go to our scrape.to. So now we're going to scrape the Formula One homepage, just like that. Let's bring this down here because we're finished with the intro and subject. So we're going to fetch the Formula One homepage, and we're going to ask ChatGPT to figure out when the next race is. We'll add a message, and here's our prompt. So you'll be provided the homepage of the Formula One website. Your task is to extract when the next race is. So the key here is to pass the current date. Otherwise, it'll take the training date of the model. So we're saying the current date is, and then you can use a variable within make.com for now, or provided a timestamp. It's not just the next race that we're looking for. We're actually looking for it to populate out this section. So what we need to do, similar for the news HTML, we need to find the next race HTML, which is here. So what we can do then is just copy out this and then drop this into our prompt, which is effectively what we have here. So that is the HTML structure we want. So now we just need to pass it the homepage. So there's the role, message content, and give it the data from this website scrape. And again, max token 0. We don't need a JSON output. We're happy with text because it's going to be HTML. So again, if we look back at the template, we now will be able to populate out the next race, when it is, the time and location. We have this link for view ticket packages. So this is where you can really make money from email marketing. Here we have an audience of Formula One fans who are going to be receiving a weekly news bulletin on the latest news story. So by offering a link to ticket packages, you can get a commission off any purchases through clicks on that link. So this button would link through to a motorsport ticket website, and they will have various packages. But the key is, if you're a member of their affiliate program, and you can see here that they have an affiliate program, then you'll get a specific tracking link that you can embed in your email template. And that way you'll get a kickback on any purchases driven from your email newsletter. So this is the same then for merchandise. So this is the F1 store, and here you can see the latest merchandise. And these guys also have an affiliate partner program. So this will be unique to each individual use case. For Formula One, there are different programs for different types of ticket packages and merchandise. So if you are looking to make money from your email newsletter, it is worth investigating what affiliate marketing programs are available in your industry that you could promote through it. So now that we have the HTML for the next race section, we now need the HTML for the latest merchandise section. So as I showed you, the Formula One store has a newest item section. So the idea here is we're going to pull the latest 3 items that are available on the shop, and we can inject them into the newsletter. As I mentioned before, your options here are web scraping or using an RSS feed. This store doesn't have a native RSS feed, But that great app that I showed you, rss.app, has an RSS builder. So let's jump into that. I'll copy out the URL and we'll come in here and we'll click my feeds, new feed. And if I paste in that URL for the shop, you'll see that there isn't any RSS feed. However, if you click on RSS Builder and paste it in here, you're actually able to build one out on the fly, which is absolutely brilliant. No code required. And all you need to do is select the title, and that's it. Click generate, and it's going to pull all of the titles and all of the images. We now have our feed of the latest 3 pieces of merchandise available on the store, and then we can copy out that XML URL and then come back into make.com. And then similar to what we did at the very start of the scenario, we'll just use the built-in get a file. We're going to fetch that XML file. And let's bring this down here, but let's rename this. This was generate next race HTML, and then this is going to be generate latest merch HTML. Okay, so with the latest 3 pieces of merchandise, go to the GPT-4 system, and then we're going to ask it, you'll be provided an XML of the latest 3 pieces of merchandise. Based on this info, generate an output based on the following HTML structure. So again, we need to look here. So this is whatever's in your template, you need to just copy out that HTML structure, which is this latest merchandise. That's the table. You would copy that out, and then you would effectively paste that in there, which is kind of what you see. And then only output HTML as well. And finally, what we need to do is pass it the latest merchandise from the feed. So there we go. Max token 0. So let's rename it. So this is generate latest merch. Excellent. So we now have all of the HTML for the news items. We have the introduction and the subject. We have the HTML for the next race section and the HTML for the latest merchandise section. So that's pretty much everything we need now to auto-populate this template and to provide us something like this. Great. So next step then, come back into make.com. We now need to go to Mailchimp. So first things first, we need to create a campaign. Let's drag this up here. So now we can set a campaign title, and the campaign title is what we generated here for the intro and subject. So it was this JSON parse. So email subject. We can set our list. So here I've set up a test F1 list. The subject line can also be that email subject. So from name and from email address. So ezine at f1fans.sport, let's say. And then for template ID, we want to choose this F1 template on Mailchimp, which is this template. And then we click OK. Brilliant. So this should generate a campaign for us. Now we need to populate the content of that campaign. So we'll come into Mailchimp, edit a campaign template content, and then what we want to do is set the campaign ID to what we just created. We can set the template ID to the one we just selected, and then this is where it all ties together. So editable content area, click add item, and now you can select the content area name. So you'll see here there's a bit of help text. So select the name of the content area. If the content area is named MC edit equals section, select section. So let's go back into our template. And what we're looking for is this MC edit. And anywhere you see this, or anywhere you paste this against a div, you'll be able to copy out what it says. So let's say body intro. So we'll put in body intro there. And what we're going to do, so body intro is this section, hey F1 fans. So that's the introduction to the template. And then we generate the intro here. So let's come back to that. And there's our opening paragraph. So there's our body intro. So next up, let's look at what's next on our template is this news item. So let's come down here. You can see MC edit equals body content 1. So paste that there. And now we want the content, the HTML for this. HTML for this can be what we aggregated. So you can go to array result and click that. Now, what you're going to end up with is you have 5 items in this array because we will have run this 5 times for each news item. So content of the area, because you've selected an array, there's a gap where you can put in a number. So we want the first news item in the array to populate out this section. So we put in array 1 result. Perfect. So then we can keep going here. Body content 2, and then you can copy that out and set it to 2. Because you'll see in the template, body content 1 is followed by body content 2 is followed by body content 3. So that's how you can work through the email template. Body content 3. I'll add the other 2. There's 5 placeholders for news items in this template. This is 4 and this is 5. Great. So that should be all of our news items and our intro. So now we just need to add the next race and the merchandise. So here's our next race section. And you can see MC edit next race. So I just copied that out. And now we want to use this generate next race HTML. So that is this one. Finally, what is our merchandise one called? So it's here, latest merchandise, MC edit, latest underscore merch. And then this is the HTML for that we generated here. So we're in good shape. This should generate out the full HTML email. So then let's click OK. And now it's for the moment of truth. Let's generate the email. What I'll do is I'll set this back to, it's only running twice. So let's set this back to 5 because we want to populate the entire email template. So I'll save that and let's run it. Okay, so it's finished. It's created the campaign and it has populated it out. So let's go into Mailchimp and we'll have a look. All campaigns. Red Bull's hypercar revealed and Ricardo's resurgence. And we'll click preview. And here we go. Welcome back, F1 fans. You can see the subject has been set and nice. There's the first article from Formula1.com. It has pulled the correct information for the next race. There's the second and third news stories. We have our latest merchandise, which is brilliant. And then fourth and fifth stories. So having a quick look at the text then as well, it's really nicely written. So it's talking about the author and the publication and provides a very brief summary of what it's about with the link to the article itself. And again, then you can have affiliate links for, say, the merchandise and the ticket packages, all tied together by a really nice introduction. So that's great. The campaign then shows up in your drafts, so you can further edit it as needed. And then you can click send when you're happy with it, or you can schedule send within Mailchimp. The end-to-end flow from clicking the run once button took about a minute. And of course, then you can also schedule that to draft every week or every month, depending on what you need. This end-to-end solution was based on pulling the top 5 articles from whatever was in this RSS feed bundle that I created. If you wanted to pull off multiple sources like YouTube or social channels as well as websites, then you could build out this section here to drag in as much data as possible to then be analyzed and reordered. You could also create different sections of this email template, maybe for latest YouTube videos, maybe for the latest conversations on social, whatever really works for your audience. While it's not the most straightforward end-to-end flow, it does achieve full automation of drafting an email. But the key really is the email template. Spending time up front designing an engaging email template that will delight your users and will keep them wanting more and more. And as you can see with what we did with the next race section, through some very simple web scraping, you can get GPT-4 to generate out some really nice information. When it comes to building out the email template in Mailchimp, let's just talk about that for a second. That's available under Content Email Templates. So if you're creating a template, which you can do on the top right there are a few options. This works best if you code your own, and then you're just pasting in the code. And the reason for that is you need that MC edit parameter to show in the area that you want the make automation to populate out. Without that MC edit parameter, the system just won't work. There are lots of free email newsletter templates out there that you can use as a basis. I played around with some of the templates on Be Free, which you can then export out as HTML. You can then drop in that MC edit code, and that way then the make automation can pick it up. But again, that's just one of a number of solutions for free HTML email templates for Mailchimp. So once you find an email template that you're happy to use, you can definitely use ChatGPT to make changes to that HTML structure if you're not comfortable in doing it yourself. So for example, you could say add a new section with MC edit equals body underscore content 6. If you wanted the 6th item, and then just drop in the HTML, and then ChatGPT will work through and make the changes for you. And then you can copy that out and drop it into your Mailchimp template. I'll provide links to the Mailchimp template language supporting documentation in the description below. The other thing to mention is when you're importing an email template into Mailchimp, you'll need to use the classic builder. So to do that, go into your profile, click settings, and then scroll down to default email builder, and click Classic. I hope this video was helpful in showing you how you can automate the process of creating email newsletters with Make.com. And once again, if you want access to the Make.com blueprints so that you can just import them at the click of a button, then check out the link in the description to our community, where you'll get access to all of our templates, including this one. Thanks for watching.